Welcome to the Legion Academy live stream on YouTube. Tonight we have special guest LJ Peña. How you doing, LJ?
Hey guys, good to be back on. Good to see everybody. Hopefully you're all surviving quarantine all right. Nobody's killed each other or any loved ones or anything yet.
Yeah, so far the loved ones are safe. Just found out today my job has 4 confirmed cases of COVID, and I'm still going there 5 days a week. So that's fun.
Just going to go quickly update next week's show notes here to put pending for next week's episode because Joe might be out. So, yeah.
We'll be broadcasting live from the hospital.
Yep. Quarantine full effect.
Sean, you work at a school, right?
I did work at a school. Now I work at home.
You've been out for like 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. It's been nice teaching from home. I actually kind of can't complain.
I'm an administrator, so far all the kids have behaved. No suspensions. I've had hardly any teacher complaints. No parents have visited me, so everything's good on my end. So
that's good.
Yeah,
it's funny because I've got a couple of friends who are teachers, and like some of them are going stir crazy, and others are loving it.
No, I've been on the loving it side.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got, obviously, I'm sure everyone's seen because it's been quite controversial over the last 48 hours if you've been keeping up with the Facebook feeds, but we got a new tournament regulation document. A welcome one, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic. I like everything I'm seeing in there, but it's not always what everyone's saying. It seems like it's upsetting some people. I don't know if it's for good reason or not, but to each their own. So we kind of wanted to talk about that, and certainly we couldn't think of more of a tournament expert than LJ here. And also we're going to be talking about Double the Fall and the old versions and the potential new versions. LJ's been known to play that list with some great success, especially most recently in the pseudo worlds tournament that we had on Tabletop Simulator. I think it's called the Knowledge and Defense Invitational. Yep, and it's basically like a kind of a way of celebrating the world championship in light of having it unfortunately be canceled, and quite a large successful tournament, and LJ did quite well in that. So I've also been playing a lot of Double the Fall in the last few months, so we just wanted to spitball on some stuff about that list because I think it's a really fun list. So, yeah.
So a ton of good topics. Make sure you pull out your calipers because we'll get into the 42, 43 millimeter discussion here pretty soon. So I like it. Every second post I see is another version of the silhouette, followed by someone making mention that that's not tournament legal, right?
Yeah. I love, my favorite post I saw was, I hate what this does to casual play. I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
And lots of poop emojis and lots of weird stuff. So it's hilarious. But
I don't know. This is really a hot take, but I'm not sure if you saw the recent post of which I complimented that it was a hard flex. But someone's got K2 and Cassian in hand. So how's that happening?
Yeah.
I mean, I went into quarantine 2 weeks ago, but somehow I missed the entire month of April, apparently, because it is already May.
So, I know ATs are floating around, too.
Did you know today was day? Tomorrow's going to be day. The day after that is day. It's just all day now.
Yeah. We're still waiting on Sabres and B2s, so just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have my Sabres tonight. I should show the paint job on that. So I think I'm the only one around here with Sabres, and that's thanks to Nick Smith for sending them to me before Trump slammed tax on everything. So thank you. But I digress. You want to get into this tournament document?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Actually, let's just quickly recap. So how many games of Legion did you guys play this week? Oh, done already? All right, moving on.
You know about the games of Legion I played? I've been playing Legion.
Hey, man, TTS is viable. I've been playing some TTS.
Somebody took a picture for me. There were, on Saturday when he took the picture, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but there were 40 servers of Legion going at the same time. Not all in the Discord, but like 40 different servers of games were happening. So that scene has been alive and well, and I mean, I think it'll help keep that interest going until we're all, chomping at the bit to play in person. So it definitely serves a great purpose right now.
I would say on the plus side here, what's happening is because we can't get Friday night fights, we can't get weekly gaming in, the painting queues are getting smaller for everyone but myself. But they are getting smaller, so what that's doing though is creating a ton of hype around things that people want to get on the table, because now they're really proud and impressed by the work that they're doing, so they want to get them out on the table. Apparently I'm getting echo, so I'm going to see if I can take care of that for you guys right now. And that should help you right now, so I'll let chat catch up, but I'm pretty sure that takes care of the echo. So let's
piggybacking on that point, honestly, like I haven't played Rebels a ton competitively in the last year, so I have quite a large backlog of unpainted Rebels that I've played once and then put away for a while, like the FD and stuff. So to get them caught up and stuff. So yeah, I agree with you on chipping away at that painting backlog. I mean, hey, if you're into miniatures games, there's almost always a backlog for most people, so that's good stuff. All right, tournament regulations.
Yes.
Let's do it.
I'm just gonna do an echo check for me there, just to make sure that I think I potentially have corrected. Yeah, well, we'll let the chat decide, but I'm fairly certain I should be good to go now. Yeah, they're good. Awesome. Yeah, so the tournament reg, I basically just have a quick splash screen up here just to go over the things that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about the tournament regs document, a couple pages that we pulled out, obviously the silhouettes, because that's a hot topic, and just talk a little bit of generically how this is going to impact. Now, let's just caveat this. No impact on casual play. We're just talking about tournament play here, so let's not get super excited here. All right, so let's go over to the drop document here, and we'll go in no particular order. But let's start here. One that's apparently generated a little bit of conversation.
Yeah. So it looks like there's been some guidelines put in.
YouTube said stopped broadcasting, but I just hit resume, so should be okay now. That's weird. YouTube just sent a message, said that they stopped broadcasting.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go check YouTube here real quick.
That's we're weird. Live, man.
Okay, fair enough. It just said that it stopped, and I just hit resume, so should be good. All right, go ahead. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So LJ, I mean, do you have any thoughts on this? From what you've seen in these guidelines, I think it's pretty good,
So I'm really happy that there's something like this in an official document, because as you guys know, I've done a lot of work with Legion tournament circuit to try to provide some sort of guideline and stuff, and a lot of things that I do, I would much rather that somebody else take that thing and do it instead. There's a lot of things that I'm so happy when I don't have to do it anymore. And the tokens, they're a big thing. I will happily give the files for the tokens away because I want more people to create those. I want FFG to create its own official guideline, because then somebody else can look at that and go, yeah, that's the official product. Let's use it. I'm totally cool with that. So when I saw this, the guidelines themselves, the written guidelines, made me really happy, because in general, they're good guidelines, and a lot of store owners who might not be quite on top of Legion as their players, they're going to look at this official document and use it to structure their event. They're not going to want to look at a website that's unofficial, because they don't know if we have any idea what we're talking about, and that's kind of one of the biggest problems I've encountered trying to up the quality level of tournaments over the last year, is just resistance, because we're not coming at it from an official capacity. It's all something done because we just want the scene to be better. So when I looked at this, I was pretty happy. There's a couple things in the document that got updated that I think are going to be overwhelmingly positive. The the increase in round times to 2 hours and 30 minutes was a big one for me. And then this was actually probably my second favorite one because, just having those hard numbers is awesome. Now, some people disagreed about the picture.
Oh man, I think it's funny. I'm like, man, recover the supplies on that table. Where do you balance the box?
And as you guys know, I felt really bad because I work with Brad a lot and he helps me balance a lot of my tables last season for Invader, and you guys saw him working hard at LVO, and I checked into him to see if he had a heart attack yet, because when he saw that I knew he probably had one.
I know. I actually thought about that too. I was like, everything Brad spends all this time stressing out about is just ripped to shreds in that one image. But I do. The one thing I do really like about the description though is it actually sort of requires area terrain, which is something I found to be quite lacking at most of the primes that I've gone to in the Midwest, and just in general. We have a lot of awesome 3D printed stuff and even some awesome scratch built stuff, but we probably play with less area terrain than, well, one, certainly what you would see on a TTS, or two, maybe what they suggest. So I like that they formally were like, hey, you should try to put some area terrain on the table, because I think that's going to make tables in general more interesting.
Right. I think area terrain's one of the harder ones to just print and go like we do with a lot of our terrain. Yeah. That's been, a really nice thing about when Legion hit, is that 3D printed terrain has been such a huge part of its growth and inception, and we almost have to go get a little less advanced, because with area terrain, you kind of have to bring some of those handheld techniques back that maybe have gone away a little bit because 3D printing makes things so easy. So I hope that, as we continue to build tables, we can find good and easy area terrain kind of, in our brains. We can pull out ideas that match the tables. But, I think that's why you don't see so much of it, is because it can be hard for people to put together because they want to do stuff, as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I've seen a lot of tables, though, at least locally, where there's a lot of, maybe model railway or just hobby woodland scenics trees and stuff. And it's you put the tree on and the tree is standing, but if you just put it on a piece of felt, now you have area terrain, right? And you can pick up and move it, and it's all it needed was that one little piece of felt, and now it's so much better.
Right. And I actually come from a 40K background, in which one of the stores that I played at consistently, he literally just had a box of felt that he would throw on tables, and that was your area terrain. It didn't look good, but area terrain was everywhere because you could just throw out a cutout of felt. So okay, maybe that's a little too low tech, but still there's a middle ground there that I'm sure we can find to get that aspect back on the table.
Right. Or if you're hey, we need 16 tables, maybe a couple of them are just going to have some felt, shapes, and that's fine, right? Yeah. That's an easy fix, I think. So definitely give some TOs and stuff, some stuff to think about on entering into the next year and late this year's competitive season. And I'm excited to see that, because I think area terrain's cool, and I want to see people have a reason to take environmental gear and stuff more often,
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Question coming in from chat from Jason was asking if they had defined what I guess large and medium terrain pieces were. I guess here it doesn't look like they've put a definitive size, but I think that may be a little bit up to player discretion. I don't know if they've had any exact measurements here, but according to this, it looks like on that table that's 6x3, the 3 buildings are defined as large, and so I'd say that that's going to be up to players to decide, but maybe that is something that TOs or organizers can have some discussion about, create a large and a medium pile, and then just make sure that those things are dispersed evenly. So I don't think a player is going to walk up and say, this has 4 pieces of large terrain because I define that as large and not medium. Like, I don't think it's going to get that nitpicky. I think these are guidelines that probably have a little bit of leeway one way or the other. I mean, an ATST, well, on the ground it's not large, but in the game I would consider it to be a large model, right? It's taller than a building. So are they using volume as the definitive measure here? Are they using footprint? Are they using height? Doesn't look like they have any definitive.
They do specify
in terms of line of sight. Yeah, in terms of height.
They say try to have one height 2,
one,
and then they do call out one height 2 if possible, which is good. I think it's like, hey, you have units that have keywords that are advantageous on certain things, like try to make use of those if you can, right? That's more or less how I read that. Yeah. Because like you said, it is a guideline, right? It's not like you don't have to. It's not a science here. It's more of a recommendation.
According to this, 1 to 3 large line of sight blocking terrain of height 2 or higher. So it's like, here's your range of items. Then you're going to get down to like, this building has both height 1 and height 2 because it has a balcony on it. So I think that there's going to be lots of discussion that can be had pre-setting up the tables. These aren't going to be discussions that you're going to have when you walk up to a table. You'll discuss the terrain as per usual, but I don't think you're going to be discussing the formulation of, does this have an adequate number of these pieces and those pieces? And but I do like the fact that they're including area terrain. We include a ton of area terrain here. We don't use felt cutouts. We use like these sort of bases from Flames of War. They're for our forests. We throw 1 or 2 trees on. Inevitably, by the end of the game, what ends up happening is one piece of area terrain has like 19 trees on it, and the rest are all flat because you've used them. But the aesthetics are there, and then you're free to kind of move those pieces around. So the only thing is you got to be careful of things migrating off those area terrain pieces onto the table because we use those as well. But I like the inclusion of area terrain, probably my favorite part of the whole thing. I also like the fact that they've given you what a skirmish table looks like, because skirmish tables are probably some of the ones that I've seen that people have the most discussion around, whether they have too much or not enough terrain. And I think anytime you half the space, you don't necessarily directly half the terrain number. That's one of the things that I've noticed is sometimes skirmish tables can come up a little bit sparse if you were to just build them as half of a 6x3. But because you lose those pieces that kind of ride the center, and you typically don't push them out to one edge or the other. So comment coming in here as well. What do you guys think about the range 1 separation rule?
The range 1 separation thing comes from the competitive terrain placement, and that's something that is really good to keep in mind as we head into the era of these larger tanks like the AAT and the Saber. Just don't make it so everything is range 1 separated. Make sure you're not like what we call not scatter terrain. Make sure that thing is range 1 separated, but anything that's scatter terrain, barricades, like linear pieces that, units can move up to and through and over, make sure that stuff is in the middle of that range 1 group. Yeah. So, because those tanks can move over that stuff, but you don't want it to make it so your entire table is range 1 bands, because then it'll just be, very, I don't know, very linear and not very
Warhammer fantasy-esque.
Well, just kind of stale in general. But I know I completely agree with you, LJ. Actually, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Basically, I was going to say the same thing. It's like tanks can drive over scatter, right? Typically, so you don't. I think the range 1, like you said, it's to create interesting lanes for like larger stuff, but you can freely move over that with the large stuff. So you don't need to, you could put a barricade flush against a building. You could put a piece of area terrain touching a building so that it kind of tar pits you if you want to walk out from behind that line of sight blocking building. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You don't have to sit down and spread everything super far apart. So,
Right. Yeah, so I'm glad they included that little line in there, that 4th bullet point. Very helpful. I also noticed the percentage of terrain you should use got a bit of a bump. At minimum, it's 25%, but they also bring up 35%. And again, that's one of those things where, if they say at least 25%, people are going to just look at it and say, oh, my table should have 25%. Whereas now they've created this kind of bracket. And that was always a thing that like I tried to do when I ran tournaments, is that, okay, there are 6 tables and a group, let's say. There's a group of 6 tables. There's going to be 4 tables that are going to be right in the middle, one table that's going to be closer to 25, one table that's going to be closer to 35. And that's how I would build my tables in those groups of 6 or so. And you could even do the same thing with just a group of 4 tables, one light, one heavy, 2 in the middle, and just apply that to the entire tournament. So I'm glad they've kind of done that, because I feel like it's easier to take those kind of liberties as a TO, because you can point to this and say, hey, they've created that bracket. I'm going to use that bracket when I create my tables. And I encourage people to do that. One of the things that myself and, Brendan especially is very insistent on is that somebody that goes, undefeated at a major event, it's because not only did they navigate their opponents, but they also navigated the tables, and they were able to, use that terrain and identify the gaps in it and use it as part of their success. And it makes a more well-rounded winner. And so I do feel like these guidelines kind of work towards that instead of against it, which I appreciate because it makes it easier to do what I like to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I completely agree.
I think it's important to point out too that under the 6x3 guidelines, you'll see at the last bullet point there, 8 to 12 pieces of scatter terrain, including barricades, crates, etc. Now with, and we'll talk a little bit about it maybe coming up, but we can talk about it a bit now too. With fortified positions, you could have upwards of 20 pieces of scatter terrain on a table. So if you're riding that 35% and you're right on that cusp, suddenly you're throwing another 8 pieces of terrain out there. You're going to be pushing quite a bit of percentage in terms of coverage. Now, that doesn't take you outside of the guidelines. You don't have to account for that, but just keeping in mind that you could end up with tables with considerable, or for that matter, you could have I think it's skirmish, it's 4 barricades. So you could end up with 14 pieces of scatter terrain on a skirmish table, which is, a little bit above normal probably.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty dense for sure.
Yeah,
I like fortified positions. I think, there's certain lists that particularly love it, but I think it's fun. You know what? The thing I like most about it is I've never painted a barricade, and I have so many because I think between the original and the Clone Wars, I have 6 core sets.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm like, hey, I can now paint barricades that are themed to my army when I go to a tournament. That's kind of cool.
What Joe's not going to admit is he also bought 2 extra barricade packs too. So, so he's sitting on a big.
Hey, there's a reason to buy those now, right?
That's true.
Definitely
That's true.
To buy them.
All right, let's move on to the next page of the reference document here. This is specifically referring to tokens, and I'm just going to draw your attention to the very bottom point here. Very proud of this point. I am also going to raise a piece around the opacity rule here. So you guys have all heard my funny story, and you heard Legion Academy or tokens are shipping. The Ziploc bags are now just going to be a storage device. You cannot use them as your token bag, which we were going to include with those. However, I will notice that they have not put a percentage of opacity here, so 1% I think still counts. So I'm just going to draw that. Just want to bring that point up to rub some salt there. This guy. LJ, do you have any opinions or comments about this? Do you object to clear bags?
That line was actually in the document for Worlds, so it's funny that they kind of used that and had that in mind already and just applied it here. So whenever I gave tokens away, I tried to give a bag away as well. So I was already on that train, and it wasn't opaque.
Yeah.
So.
You know what? I do like that they specifically are requiring some sort of bag, though.
Yeah, right. They just get rid of the stack.
Standardize it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I will. I'm gonna just quickly jump to my Facebook Messenger. I just want to quote this person specifically and correctly. This is courtesy of Ryan Slosky at 2:24 p.m. yesterday. We made it, buddy. With a big circle around the token the token indication here, because it was Ryan who I attempted to pull the clear bag trick on at Gen Con. So we're good.
Gotcha.
So he proceeded to
the classic Gen Con troll. Called Brendan over, and it was like, it doesn't say I can't use a clear bag.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Now it does.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
Now I just have to get better at Legion. All my tricks of knowing what activation I was going to have. All right, next page coming up here. Tournament structures. So we won't have to go through the whole thing, but I think this is really nicely done because it has a couple layers. It's got, seemingly numbers that are going to appeal to all tournaments of all sizes. 4 to 8 at 2 rounds. I did have a question around that, but maybe I'll just let you guys talk specifically. I'll pose it right now. Now, are we looking at this as a 4 to 8 round, 4 to 8 player tournament is only 2 rounds, and that is the maximum? Or could a 4 to 8 player tournament actually have 3 rounds if that was something that the TO wanted to organize?
Yeah, I don't think that's really going to change much. I mean, these numbers were in there before, and I think most people would see, okay, I have 8 or less players, we do 3 rounds, we get a direct winner. So, I don't really think this is going to affect very much change because this isn't any different than what was in there before. Yeah. But I think, people will look at that, and if you're running that sort of structure, you probably will do what feels best for your group of people. Yeah. Nobody was using the numbers anyway because the Prime kits came with specific instructions that had a slightly different guideline to it.
Yeah.
So I think most people will just look at this and make it work, and they'll probably go down to custom at the bottom and do something within those bounds instead.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, okay, one says basic structure, one says advanced structure. I mean, basic structure to me means it doesn't necessarily have to relate specifically to a prime. There are several stores across the country that get their organized play kits with just have the eWeb alt art, and it comes with 16 of them, right? And instead of doing a league, they just do a 1-day event, and maybe they get 6 people or 8 people.
Yep.
Well, I mean, 2 games with 8 people, they're probably everyone's walking away with those cards for participating. I think that kind of falls into this category too.
Right. The basic structure stuff is perfect for when you don't need one winner, but you have now I have 4 people that are undefeated. We don't need a winner because there's nothing on the line here, but they all get this special alt art because I only had 4 copies of it. So I think it works within that structure really well.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I just wanted to point out that people when they look at this, it's not like you have to pick a structure and then it's we must do only 2 rounds, because I mean, driving 3 to 4 hours, because here that's kind of common for us to go to our local events, so 3 hours to drive for 2 games isn't really appealing, and we're not driving up for the promos or the cards. To be honest, we're driving up to play some games, so it's nice to see that that 3 rounds can happen. You don't have to have a cut, everyone gets 3 games in and then off you go, kind of thing. So I do like that. I love to see more 91 and above player tournaments. That would be fantastic to have that with 5 rounds. So just not 1 day. They don't really speak to this in terms of how many days, because I think that's up to organizers, but I think 5 rounds is a bit much for one single day. But at the same time, when you have that 5 round and then cut to 4, then you could get upwards of 7 games in a day. So you played what, a 6 round 1 day tournament, Joe? Is that what that was? That 6 or 7?
I've always played 5. I've always capped out at 5.
Okay,
but 5 is pretty commonplace for primes that are at the 32 player mark,
right?
Because you have to have a single winner, right?
Yeah.
So 5. I agree. 5 is exhausting and feels like too much, but I don't really think there's a better way to do it when you need 1 winner in a 32 player tournament, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. Right? For primes, that's very big. because you can't really do 2-day event for a lot of primes, especially when you do travel for it. You're like, oh, cool, I made the cut. Does that mean I have to get a hotel? I mean, that's not really something you can ask people to do feasibly. One of the things we were considering for LVO next year was, because that does fit the 91 and above category, was doing 128 people over 2 days or 3 days total, and making it so you can drop a game and still continue. And so you can kind of use advanced structure for some of these bigger events to do some cool stuff, and that makes it, it fits a multi-day thing better, and you can also lose a game. And that's not necessarily written in the structure. That's something you got to like go to SwissTriangle.com, go look at how many, X's and ones you're going to have or whatever, and then plan it out backwards, plan it from there. So, the structure is there and it's built for it. And, somebody that looks at it and uses it a certain way will, I think, get a lot out of it.
I got to say, I think the idea, and I've spoken to a lot of local guys about this, it's really a feels bad moment knowing that the second you lose a single game, you're kind of out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like that. I really like it's like, hey, you lost one game, but you're totally still in it. Keep trying, keep playing, right? I've had primes where people have driven from Ohio to Illinois and they lost their second game and they're like, I'm out of here.
Right.
You know, it's like, and I've even seen, I've heard, speaking to some of the local guys, it's like, I don't want to fly out to Vegas for LVO in case I lose my second game. It's going to be devastating and feel like a huge waste of money. And I'm like, just give it a shot anyway. It's going to be fun. But yeah, so that's actually a really great idea, I think, giving people the chance to still advance at least to like a second day or something with one loss.
I think Gen Con suffers a lot from that, and it doesn't have to just be Legion. Just in general, you jump into a tournament, and if you know you're out and there's no point in playing another two, I've seen this in X-Wing a lot. You play another couple rounds, but it doesn't mean anything because you lost the game. Well, there's a lot of distractions at Gen Con. I can go spend my time doing something else and not feel bad about it. So I think that it's a nice way of keeping people tied to it. You don't want to see people dropping out, and you don't want to show up in your next round too. Let's say you win and you're going in and you're like, you're feeling good about yourself and you're riding that list. When you start really getting in the groove of the list, and then you show up and you have a no-show opponent, and then you're sitting for 2.5 hours, contemplating what your next game looks like. I find that kind of a momentum killer for people that are doing well. So, personally, I'm not a fan of that either. So,
I will say, and we're getting a little ahead of things here, but that will be one of the benefits of moving to MOV, is that if I beat my first opponent and then that person drops because they think they don't have a chance anymore, that doesn't negatively affect me. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because of what you just said. Is now I'm thinking about that in the back of my head all day. So just we can table that for the next slide or whatever, whenever it comes up.
It's up. We're there.
There you go. There it is.
All right.
Whoa, this guy got our show notes ahead of time or what? Holy smokes.
It's not a big document, okay?
Never tell me the odds. All right, continue.
All right. I mean, that's going to be a big topic of discussion. It's been a big topic of discussion. We're moving away from strength of schedule, and we're moving to margin of victory, or as it's otherwise known, the Bushfax system.
Yeah.
And I will say that this was something that was kind of a long time coming. I think it's something that had previously been used in other FFG games, so I'm not terribly surprised to see it pop its way up here. I know I'm perfectly, willing to give it a chance, and I don't have super hard opinions on it, because there's an illusion of control that you have with strength of schedule, or that you, in that case, don't have, and an illusion of control that you gain here. Yes. In a system like strength of schedule, it is good because you have no control. So there's certain things that you eliminate by having no control. One of the things that we're going to have to worry about with MOV, or that might come up, is, concessions are going to be treated a little bit differently, Because, if I know that I'm going to lose this game and I'm way in the hole, I might just say, hey, you know what? I don't see any way I can win this game. I'm going to go because, that'll give me an hour and a half lunch instead of half an hour. Whereas now, oh, well, this does affect things down the road. Maybe I'm incentivized to play it out to the bitter end for different reasons. So there's just other considerations that are going to be popped up. I'm not saying it's all going to be bad. I'm not saying it's all going to be good. But I think there's a reason why we're moving towards this kind of system. And I think overall, your average player is going to be happier with it because of the feeling of control that you get from margin of victory. That's kind of been my take on it anyway.
I just go to John Griffin as my classic example. The poor guy had I think 3 or 4 either primes or rally points where he went undefeated and was number 3 undefeated on strength of schedule and didn't get to play for top table. So this solves that for sure.
Right.
The other thing I actually go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's discuss bullet point 4 here, but it's going to be a longer discussion. So you drop your point, and then I'll go back to that.
Well, I was going to say the other thing that the concession thing, I agree with you, LJ, and I'll touch on that in a second. But the other thing I kind of like about this is I like that it sort of rewards you for being aggressive in a sense, in that you get a very slight benefit for winning outright as opposed to winning on a tie.
Right.
Which I think makes Legion more fun and interesting in general. Getting the 3 cap on moisture evaporators as opposed to 2 and 2, and we go to points, I think is fun. And I like that style of game better than I did my objectives, now I'm going to put as much as I can behind walls and make you come to me. Because to me, that's a little boring. It's definitely a viable tactic, and something you should do if you're trying to win in your blue player, but it's a little boring. So go, in rewarding people for essentially what I'm going to call major victories as opposed to minor victories, I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it encourages objective play.
Yes.
And that has been a huge foundational pillar of what Legion is built on, is that, if you're going and you're pushing for objectives, I think that's a more interesting game than, the battle lines, Vaporator, clear condition game. And I'm excited for that in combination with vital assets, which I've noticed promote a lot of movement. These games and vital assets are not very static. I think it goes hand in hand, and you kind of have to look at the overall picture here. If you're worried about, this incentivizes, I almost said that right, beating up newer players, I get that concern, and that's a legitimate thing. But at the same time, you're creating a game, in my opinion, that's more interesting than the type of game where, I would have just sat on my KP and shot you off it. That's not exactly an interesting game either, or something that would be fun for a new player to experience. So there's a little aspect that I don't think people are thinking about when they talk about the seal clubbing. And then I know people have been kind of worried about, now nobody's going to take Vaporators because that mission will reward less points. But I'll tell you, through that we're about to hit our 5th season of Invader League, and Moisture Vaporators is in every single blue deck, even though we have a point system for the tiebreakers in that league. You're still going to see it. It's, if you perceive it as an easy win for your list, you're going to take that. It doesn't matter how many victory points you may or may not get from it.
Right.
So
a win is still all that. It's a win is still a win, right?
Right. I think there are a lot of things that are being brought up that are corner cases, and it's not going to be your player's average experience when it comes to these new, this new system. So as I said, I really don't have super hard opinions on it, but it's been all over my feed, just like I'm sure it has for you guys. So I'm willing to give it a try. And, there was a really positive response to it, because I don't know if people remember, but they've been testing this in Arizona in at primes and stuff, and people really thought it was a fair system. So to say that like we don't have any data on it, or that the top competitive players in Armada think it's going to ruin the game, well, I'm sorry, but what we have doesn't necessarily speak to that, and I think that's why they made that decision in the end.
Yeah, I disagree with all those opinions. I think this is actually a great call. And I've seen other war games have kind of modified versions of this same system, so it's not like this isn't something that like Bushman or FFG just like made up out of the blue, right? There's definitely a time-tested logic to this system, so I like it a lot. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be good for sure, especially at these smaller events too, where there are potentially like the 3 undefeateds. I think it breaks the ties a little easier.
Right, and I think that's one of the other things that people are forgetting. I mean, we should talk about it and its impacts and what could happen, but one of the other things that I hope people remember is that if your event is structured correctly, it won't matter because you won't even have to use the tiebreaker.
Right.
So I hope people kind of keep that in mind too, and that events are flexible enough to create structures and where it won't be needed. Now, that's probably only going to be possible at the bigger events. It gets definitely harder the larger or the smaller the event gets, and primes make up a majority of the events. But that's something that TOs can kind of be wary of as they start to move into the next season of primes and such.
Totally. Sean, any more thoughts on that?
Well, I got a couple of points that I want to bring up for discussion here. So point 3, I really like here that defeating an opponent, you defeat all their units, so basically table them. Doesn't matter the MOV, it's just 100% MOV to the victor. So what it's saying here is the double saber list has got a chance, even when it doesn't. So I like that. I was really happy to see that. But actually, I wanted to bring up point 4 because we had a few, I don't want to call them controversy, but I will because it's a good word to use, endings to some events last year, coin flip situations, if you will. So I think point 4 is pretty important around that. So if a player wishes to concede the game, which effectively those were concessions, they call a judge over. That sometimes wasn't done, but here it is, spelled out. Quickly call your judge. With the judge as a witness, the players may choose to score the game and determine MOV as if it was the final round of the game. I think this means even before the game would start, seemingly. There's nothing there that says that this can't happen at the beginning of the game. So you determine that as the final round. So I guess turn 0 is your final round. But only if both players agree to do so. If the players do not agree, then the conceding player's MOV for the game is 0, and then therefore the other player's MOV will be the average of their other games in the tournament. So I'm just going back to how does this point address those coin flip situations where players never played a game? One player says, I got a long drive, so I'm going to go home. Yeah. That would be the concession. The players need to agree in the judge's presence. One player gets 0, the other player gets the average. Now, if it's the final round for the final, I guess their MOV is not really going to come into the average MOV is not really going to come into play there. But let me just run this by you, LJ. Is there potential for a player to, let's say in a scenario where you have a tournament where they could have a loss and have the same record potentially as somebody else going in? So let's say you get to the elimination rounds and I haven't lost a game. And you have lost one game, but you also made it to the elimination rounds. And which I think could be a scenario that could present. You could have the same record. Now, if a concession occurs above and somebody has a first loss, could that potentially force somebody out of a top 2 spot down to finish below somebody else who like only had their first loss in an elimination round?
It could. We've had stuff in the past like that happen where you have 3 people that are undefeated and 1 person with a loss, and then you get the pair down thing.
Yes,
it's a very similar situation to what happens with pair downs. So I mean, I guess the answer is yes, that can totally happen.
So that in that case, that's where I'm saying that point about where MOV may not matter because it becomes an average of your round. There could be a scenario where somebody went undefeated and has a very good MOV, and taking the concession here without playing the game. Again, this could be a corner case scenario, but I think it's worthwhile bringing up because this is a difference here. It's an average MOV score, and it doesn't have any caveat around here having to have played any rounds. It just makes reference to that you played as if it's the final round. But those concessions that we're talking about previously occurred before the game ever was played. So I'm just wondering if there's another piece that I'm missing, or could we potentially still have those scenarios and it would have to follow bullet point 4?
Yeah, that's something I could see answered in like a follow-on bullet point or FAQ or addition where, it specifies, okay, well, we've now created this entity called like a standard concession. A standard concession, gives you this. And, that would, honestly, that would kind of help me as a tournament organizer if we had something like that. Because when we're talking about like an LVO level event, and we have, let's say there's 32 games going on at the same time, if a judge has to witness those concessions, you know how busy the end of the round gets, where people are finishing up near the time and stuff like that. That makes it a little more hectic for the judges and stuff. So, I almost wonder if that's kind of a tool that we could put in our toolbox here down the road, to where we can just say, hey, it was a standard concession, okay, that means this. And that kind of helps speed up the process a little bit, because that was kind of one of the things I noticed when I was reading it, is that does kind of put like a strain on the admin end of it. So maybe that helps kind of answer your question, but that's kind of what came to mind for me.
LJ, that was one of the first things I brought up in our Chicago 312th Facebook group. I was like, oh man, the judge needs to witness every concession. That's going to be brutal at like an LVO or an Adepticon. Yeah, it just feel but I mean, I understand why it's there. I agree with you though. Maybe just another bullet point of like, we agreed to concede, we wrote it on this slip, maybe if the two players walk up to the judges table together, that's a little faster than, like calling a judge over to witness it. I don't know what the best option is, but something to think about for the future for another update, I think, for sure.
Yeah, that's something where, if we identify these problems now and we kind of pass them on to Matt Holland, when they do those printouts that they put in like the prime kits and stuff, that's the kind of like additional guidance that you could expect to be in there. So, that's a good one to kind of point out now and see if we can come up with a solution for.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So just a thing that I thought that I had, and was just kind of thinking back to like, okay, I'm just trying to transpose all these new rules based on all the tournaments that we've either heard about or been to or experienced ourselves, and how they would either impact us. I think a lot of these things were being done, whether they were written down or not. But it's nice to have a document, as you said, to kind of go by. So. Just checking chat. Hopefully everything's okay. I see a chat message about shelter in place sirens going off. So hopefully whatever that is, it's good. So here Well, I mean, thanks for sticking it out with us, I guess, up to this point. So truthfully, hopefully everything's great. Okay, well, that's pretty much all we were going to cover off in the document, unless you guys had anything else to sort of discuss there. I think we had. Yeah, we covered off the terrain regulations, the tokens, the schedule.
I
mean, there's always the silhouettes, but maybe we can save that for.
We can skip the silhouette thing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, we have an entirely separate piece for that. So I mean, if you guys want to go there now, I was going to go to Double the Fall first, but
let's go to Double the Fall. I want to talk about games.
Okay, good. Yeah. How about you guys don't mess up the thing that I work like a couple hours to get.
Well, no. So the one you've put up is actually, had I gone to Worlds to play, this is probably what I would have brought. Because if you look, there's no vital assets conditions or anything on this screen. Right.
gone radio silent. All right, let me just present that again because I guess apparently they did not hear me say that. So just presenting, I don't know what's going on here. It's a new update of Ecamm. I always love the new update days. So it's just defaulting to mute. So presenting Joe's list as he would have taken it to Worlds. We will have some discussion around vital assets in here. And LJ, you can chime in, of course, when you guys get to talking about that. How is it going to change the list? What's going to impact? What's going to drop out? What's going to stay the same? What's going to be better? All of those great things. So running down the list real quick, it's Grievous and Dooku, of course, the Double the Fall staples. We have 6 units of B1s, 1 with the rocket, another
2
one
with the rocket.
One has the uplink, I think, is the difference there. Yeah. Yep. Then we have 3 with the E5C with the extra trooper, and then a 4th E5C without the extra trooper. So pretty standardized core there. Only 1 uplink in the list, maybe different than some people run it, of course. And then on the leaders, aggressive tactics, strict endurance, and the annihilator on Grievous, pretty standard loadout, the exact same one that I use. And then Dooku coming in with choke, reflexes, push, and esteemed. Again, same one that I like to run. So I really like Dooku in this build for skirmish. Actually, I think it plays very well. So you can see the deployments, the objectives, and the conditions there. Again, no real surprises on that, but I am interested to hear what you guys think about the vital assets drop.
Right. So the first question I was going to ask you, LJ, is it safe to assume that the list you played on TTS would have potentially been your Worlds list?
Yes, actually. I think if you go back to the cast we did post LVO, I told you guys that would be my Worlds list.
Right. No, you did. You did. No, Double the Fall for sure. But
That's the one.
The reason I ask is because the version of Double the Fall that you ran was a little bit different than the version of Double the Fall that's listed here. And I think I want to talk about the differences because I liked what I saw from you, and I thought it's a little bit different than like my approach. And I think they're both like interesting versions, and they both kind of have a little bit of flavor in one direction or the other. So let me just ask you real quick what the difference with yours is. If I can recall, I believe instead of the 2 rockets, you took the 2 range 4 E5Ss, correct? And then you took E5Cs in the other 4 squads. And then I believe the difference was, if I can remember correctly, you put aggressive tactics on your Dooku instead of your Grievous.
Correct.
And did you just have anything in the command slot on Grievous, or was it just the 3 upgrades?
There were 3 upgrades, but it was strict endurance in the gun.
Right. So you cut aggressive tactics. And then I think your command hand is slightly different too, because mine takes basically the 3 Grievous and the 3 Dookus.
Right.
Yours, I think you took a generic or 2 in there, right?
Yeah, so mine's built around Dooku being the quote-unquote commander.
Yes.
And the original theory behind when I started running Double the Fall was, okay, you just let Grievous off the chain and have him go start, wrecking stuff. So I took Grievous's 1 and 2 pip, the 1 pip because duh, and then the 2 pip I kind of used as like a back pocket card in case I got pushed really hard or I found a situation where I would need some esteemed leader on the board. And then I took Assault so that Dooku could issue standing orders. Almost always turn 1, Dooku would issue standing orders, so I'd get search tokens because I put aggressive tactics on him. Assault, you could issue aggressive tactics. Dooku's 1, 2, and 3 pip, you could issue aggressive tactics. So now 5 out of your 6 turns that you're expected to play cards, you get aggressive tactics out of Count Dooku. And I found that it was safer for me to put it on him because Dooku moved up the field a lot slower and supported the army for a majority of the game, whereas Grievous tended to get himself in situations where he, would take fire and I would potentially lose him. The other reason why I put Assault in the list was because there was an odd game or 2 where it would be really tight, and on the last turn I'd have to nominate a droid commander, and then I could play something that was not standing orders.
Yes, fair enough. No, I noticed right off the bat. I thought that was smart. I was like, okay, if you're putting aggressive tactics on Dooku instead of Grievous, Assault is probably the better choice every single time, right? That makes perfect sense. In my case, I put my aggressive tactics on Grievous, and I typically, instead of starting with standing orders on turn one, I typically start with the 2-pip. Because what I find is that I would, it issues orders to 2 troopers. I'd issue orders to my B1 chain and Dooku. Grievous is going to get like 5 surge tokens, which to me is kind of the equivalent of having multiple dodges or something. And now, I just liked the idea of having access to Guardian on turn 1 for both characters, just to essentially defend against like a really brutal alpha strike.
Right, and that's why I keep it in my back pocket, because it's a mistake eraser for me. And I've also, there have been some shots that I've actually baited with that 2-pip and been able to kind of eat, that early alpha like you were talking about. So like I definitely like it. I know with Double the Fall, you're always going to be down on activations from your opponent. I mean, just on average you are. So I definitely have tried to, as I've kind of matured with the list, I've taken kind of like a slow roll approach with it. And that's kind of what led it to be tailored to the way that I learned how to play it. That's one of the great things I find about this list, and droids in particular, is there's not one correct way to play Double the Fall. Is you really have to tailor it to make it the most comfortable for you, because at the end of a 4-round day, you can't afford to make mistakes. And you want it to be easy, you want it to be muscle memory. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to emphasize here, that I think is really cool about this list. It's like there's actually multiple very viable versions of this that I think are flavorful and different enough, but still overall kind of approach in the same way. Man, I have to say, so I haven't had a ton of losses with this list, and I've played quite a bit of games with it, but every game that I did lose, I noticed there was one specific pattern, and it's either Grievous dies too quickly, or Grievous gets completely shut down by like really well played Jedi mind trick shenanigans or suppression shenanigans. Have you found that? Because I know typically even in like most 6-round games, sometimes I find that I'm like in round 6, I have lost both Grievous and Dooku, but I still have so many B1s left alive that I'm gonna win on the objective. Have you found that? What do you think makes this list fall apart more, the loss of Dooku or the loss of Grievous? I'm going to guess in your case you're going to say Dooku because of your aggressive tactics, but do you have thoughts on that?
It's usually Dooku. That's like that's one of the reasons why I like this list so much, is because if you ignore the big hitters, then they'll come in and they'll do damage and they'll mess you up. But if you focus everything on the big hitters, and this is actually usually my best games, is where they focus too much to try to, take out the big hitters. And then the droid mob just stands there and aim shoots and, buries you under a weight of fire. And that's why I take the 4 E5C2 sniper build, because those E5C squads are fully loaded, and then you give them the AT search tokens for extra hits, and they just bury you under the weight of fire. I think in my case, yes, that's why I play Dooku the way that I play him, a little slower, a little more deliberate, and then I try to get him engaged on turn 4 or later, because by that point, he's too much to stop. And I find that if the opponent's able to get an early wound in by like a sniper or something like that, then it really throws off my plan and my comfortability leaving him amongst my enemy. Because, with reflexes and depending on what card you play, Dooku really is not bad at sticking around. But you do have to be very careful with those 6 health points and make them work. I think my favorite thing was somebody on the Discord that they said they watched the video of the final game that I played, the other weekend. And they were like, oh, well, why did you play Assault turn 1? That was a dumb move. And then Dooku got shot by a sniper he rolled his defense dice and it was a surge, and I had a surge token on him because I put assault out first turn. And he was like, "Oh, that's why you did it. All right, I get it." And so he of course is my most precious cargo when it comes to that list. I have definitely found that I can just send Grievous in there like a heat-seeking missile, and he will often die doing his job. But when he does his job, it makes the world a difference to me. Like the way that I like to play this list, and I wish I had like a graphic or something to show you, is that I'll have the B1s kind of they're in a formation, and Grievous will run in and he'll pop the 1-pip, which will suppress a majority of my opponent's army, and then the B1s just follow in like a big swinging door.
Yep.
Because the enemy is fixed in place and they can't really do much about it because they're too busy reacting to Grievous. So now they're pouring all their firepower into Grievous, which doesn't always even kill him, depending on how you planned your attack. And the B1s are busy picking you apart from range. And I think that's why it works so well, because Grievous kind of works as a fixing force, and then the B1s can just kind of overwhelm in the meantime.
Yeah, I honestly think Grievous is like the ultimate tool in this list. For the exact reason you said. Like, I dive him in. I usually try to get him in early. Like, typically double move into a range 2 shot, and then like double move again into an engagement or something like turn 2. The thing I love about this list in general, though, is the easy access to a speed 2 choke. You can double move into a choke and cripple a squad with Dooku. And so, like, I've even found that I'm like, turn 2, I'm going to go first with Grievous, but I'm going to go last with Dooku, and it's just going to be a reflexes double move choke, and then go into, like, Dooku's 1-pip on the following turn, blast 2 units off the table, right? And I love it. I really think that, like you mentioned, one of the things that's so interesting about this list is that there's so much power in 2 models that really all you need to do is get your opponent by turn 3 into a position where they're so attritioned out on their efficiency that they cannot chew through the like 45 bodies. Because I'm thinking, hey, if you have an RTC that I choke out, now I only need to worry about you rolling 4 white dice, and then that means at most you're going to kill 4 B1s. You're not going to wipe a squad, and that's where you see like this list really shine, even though it's low activation, because it just like with access to choke over and over again, the ability to get in both of the 1-pips back to back. If you can pull both of those off without losing the characters, you're probably going to win. What I've noticed, like, over and over again. Okay, so something I wanted to ask you about is this is a flavor choice: rockets versus the E5S. The reason I take the 2 rockets is because I've gotten pretty punished by ATRTs. So I put in the 2 rockets because they shred ATRTs. However, I find that with the 2 rockets, it's still not really enough to pick through like a saber or a double saber list with like R2. So I found your choice to take 2 E5Ss intriguing, and I was wondering, do you just straight up ignore armor? Is that your play? Like, just ignore it?
Pretty much. I mean, there's 2 reasons why I do it. The list can only give out 4 surge tokens a turn. So the surge tokens, if I'm not worried about Dooku, the surge tokens usually go on the E5Cs. So perfect. That requirement has been met. Then the snipers with the E5Ss, they come with their own surge token built in the sniper rifle because of critical 1. So it covers that shortfall for me. And the other thing about Double the Fall, as I played it more and more and more, is I realized you don't want to be refreshing when the rockets want to refresh. You want to be recovering when Double the Fall needs you to recover. And so I just noticed that the times that I wanted to get the weapon back was hurting me more than it was helping me. And so I still recommend the uplink rocket trick in a single commander list. I'm definitely like not against the concept, and it helped get me my invite to Worlds at Warfare, so like I still love it and I still think it's great. But I think that in Double the Fall, I think you're better off taking the double sniper and then having one of them have the HQ uplink, because it just gives you a little more freedom that sometime honestly makes the difference. And then, yeah, with the sniper squads, if you're shooting a full sniper squad, you're expected to get 2 criticals anyway, one naturally and one from a surge. So on average, you're kind of your damage really isn't that different from what you would have done naturally from shooting at an enemy anyway. And so I just noticed I was getting a lot more mileage out of the snipers. Plus, the models are really cool, so I wanted to use them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. This was my biggest headache going into like the lead up to Worlds was not so much what I was going to be doing with Grievous and Dooku, but what were my 6 E5s or what were my 6 B1s going to have. I won a prime with 1 poison, 1 E5S, and 4 E5Cs. So I was like kind of leaning towards that a little bit, but ultimately I found that my poison droid, I played very conservatively on purpose, because had I played it aggressively, it probably would have been first to die, kind of like Fleet Troopers. So I would usually use it to like back cap and be like, you don't really want to walk into this. But I did have some success with it where it was like, I killed an operative Luke with a poison squad. I like 4 wounds and a poison token to a dewback in one shot. So that was like pretty awesome. And I was like, okay, maybe this is worth taking one of. I tried the double E5S build that you went with and I liked it, but then I got a little nervous about what would the armor meta look like at Worlds. And that's why ultimately I would have probably taken the rockets, but I agree with you. There are times where you just need to straight up not shoot a rocket. Right. Like you're like, I got to move, shoot or whatever, or move. And that sucks, right? But right. I think it does have the potential to like turn 1 and 2, pick off an ATRT, and that's why I've seen that used to great success, at least on my end, and that's why I liked it. But again, that was one of my big uncertainties. So I'm not. That's why I like this list, because there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of very viable options. This is one version. You've got another version. There's certainly 3 or 4 other versions, but yeah, that's I was racking my brain over that so much before Worlds. Really was.
I mean, that's what I was saying with, it really does kind of have to fit you and what you're comfortable with. You can really modulate it to, what you've seen be successful, and I think throwing the rockets in there is totally valid. And I played around with my heavy weapons for so long before I finally found the 4 and 2 that I was comfortable with, and that's because I'm a fan of redundancy. I know that if I'm not as careful with my first sniper, that maybe the second one can kind of cover the slack a little bit. And I love having the 4 full squads with the extra body, because the 10 dice pool can sometimes just really push through that cover, and it can be honestly intimidating on the other side of the field sometimes. And unlike the E5C, unlike the Z6, you lose the bad dice as you lose models. So I love that weapon, and it's been a standby. I saw Sean threw up a question there from somebody about using B2s instead of E1s.
Yeah, I was actually going to throw that question in, but then it came in from chat, so I wasn't going to interrupt, but I'll put that up there just to prompt. So transitioning from where we were preparing for Worlds to where we are now preparing for the end of COVID, whenever we get to play again. Let's just assume that we were playing tomorrow. Let's talk a little bit about what deployments, objectives, and conditions either one of you are replacing with the new Vital Assets drop. And Jason's question, do you see a home for B2s in the Double the Fall list?
That was one of my other configurations of it. Was 5 B1s and a B2 with the ACM, because I like it, because sometimes they just get ignored, and a full B2 squad is throwing ATST dice pool, 9 dice, the triple pain bow, 3 whites, 3 blacks, 3 reds, and I wanted to keep playing with it, but I didn't think they were going to be ready in time for Worlds. So I have to get a lot of games in with the list before I feel comfortable bringing it to a Worlds level event. So I didn't play it, but I was messing around with it online, and I genuinely did enjoy it. Just didn't get the time I needed in. But in this new post Vital Assets world, I'm definitely going to be trying it again because I like the thought of B2s walking around with a hostage.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very fair point. That's a great point, actually. I'll say this. Is adding a single B2 viable? I think so. Did I try it? I tried it twice, and I didn't like it because of the range 2 restriction. I found that by the time I would get... Man, and again, this is me not having a ton of reps with B2s, and maybe I could have played it better. But the tables I played on didn't have like a ton of line of sight blocking stuff to like move between. So I found that when my opponent just kind of honed in on them pretty quickly, and they were like off the table in turn 2.
Right. And that's kind of the other big problem is sometimes the real estate to hide Grievous and Dooku behind is so thin to begin with. It's like, cool, my squad that dies almost at the same rate as B1s, but is more expensive than them, is going to be the ones exposed. I don't know if I was truly comfortable with making that decision yet. So I totally agree with that. That's a good assessment.
Yeah, and what is it? I think it comes in something like 84 points or something. So yeah, it's you have to cut other things to fit them in, and I just found that I kind of just liked what the B1s were doing better. Yeah, like the B2s, when they get in, if they're at full, they're like fleet troopers, man. If they get in at full health, they're disgusting. But getting them in is the tough part,
Let me just pose this question here. If I can just reference back to our terrain discussion previously, does it make you feel better as tournament players going to events knowing that, because one of the discussions you and I had, Joe, going into Worlds with so many tables, we weren't 100% sure what the configuration and layout will be. Now that we have some standardized formatting, if you will, for tables, where we got parameters for percentage, we got parameters for number of buildings of this size and that size, and area, terrain, and scatter. Does it make you feel more confident with list configurations where you're sort of not devaluing or unvalidating terrain, but knowing that there's going to be specific parameters that tables are going to have, and you can feel more comfortable going in? I know my tanks are going to be able to move between buildings. I'm not going to have to worry about that. Not every building, but at least some. I know that there's going to be some area terrain. I know there's going to be X amount of scatter and a percentage of coverage. Because a lot of what we've talked about before are like, well, if the tables are open, if the tables are dense, we've had those sort of conversations before. Where do you guys settle out now, specifically with Double the Fall or with other lists? That doesn't really matter in terms of, do you feel better?
I'll be honest with you. I learned a harsh lesson in the early Rally Point season because I was very into playing triple sabs last year, and I got burned hard on a table that had like no line of sight blockers. So my big takeaway from that, the lesson that I learned was never count on a gimmick, essentially. I think triple sabs is in a way a little gimmicky because it requires like a certain type of terrain for them to be optimal. And even with terrain guidelines, I still think you can like go to a prime and play on a crappy table. Because I think that's like the nature of just organizing local events. Not every store has access to 8+ tables. You're usually borrowing them from community members. Sometimes you're piecemealing stuff together the best you can just to make the event run. So a tournament guideline is fantastic. I don't think it's going to suddenly miraculously make everyone have access to all the terrain they need. So if you're saying, like, do I feel comfortable tailoring a list knowing that every table is going to be super balanced for my list? Not necessarily. I think if I'm playing a list that relies on, like, needing a lot of line of sight blockers to be good, I don't know if that's always a safe bet walking into every single competitive event. What are your thoughts on that, LJ? Is that even like the question you ask? Am I making the right point? I mean, did I go off on a tangent there? I don't know.
It's no. The question just simply being, we have defined parameters for tables,
right?
So that effectively should, in theory, remove one of the biggest variables for particular lists. You mentioned a few. Mm-hmm. So really, we're asking LJ now, because there's some standardization to that, which tournament organizers should hopefully be following. Does that make you feel a little bit more confident when you're list building that you don't have to account for those extremities on one way or the other? Like if this table has no line of sight blocking, it's an auto loss. Or if it's all line of sight blocking, I have no chance of winning.
Or I dominate because it's all line of sight blocking.
Yeah. Like, but I'm just saying that if you walk up to a table and already can instantly decide that you've won the game, I just don't really feel like that is how Legion is supposed to be played, and I don't want to be doing that in the list building phase either, or potentially not taking a list for that thing where it's like, well, you know what, if I end up with a table that's like this, I auto lose, so I'm not going to take that list.
Sabs.
No, I think that's been covered well enough. They built a decent amount of granularity in there that, you know, assuming your TO doesn't build everything as an open field or everything as, you know, a city of death, you can reasonably expect the exact same thing that you played this last year anyway. I think overall tables and table quality got a lot better over the second year than they did during the first year. And that's just going to be something that, you know, you're just going to have a good pulse on your community and, you know, the tournaments you go to kind of make that call. Am I comfortable playing this list knowing that there is this variability in the tournaments? I submitted my list first. Even though I was helping with Knowledge and Defense, I was the first one to give Kingsley my list because I knew that they had to pick the tables and I would be able to see that discussion. And I said, hey, this is the list I'm the most comfortable with. Whatever the tables end up being is what they're being. But I'm going to play this list because I've been playing it basically since September or, you know, whenever the heck Dooku came out. And I want to be successful as a player. And so, like, I think for me, it's going to go into my decision-making process. But it's going to be more like something that I should, you know, be able to be like, hey, do I have a plan to encounter this problem if I have it? If the answer is yes, then I'm still going to take the list anyway because it's the best one that I think I can play. And I do think that Double the Fall is severely estimated in our current meta. So I would take it. I was going to take it knowing that the terrain would be decent because I trust Brendan. But, you know, for stuff like Knowledge and Defense where I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, I still took it because I felt like it gave me the best chance to do well.
Yeah, so effectively you answered the question, then. You took a list regardless of the terrain you were going to play on. You didn't take a list because you were anticipating or knew what the terrain was going to look like.
Right. I think Double the Fall is a list that you can play on most types of terrain. I think I've never stressed out about terrain being the issue with Double the Fall. My big factor of uncertainty is like, do I go double rocket? Do I go double E5S? Do I go 6 E5Cs? Do I throw poisons in? Like, what is the meta call I'm making to tech against, right? Because rockets are really good against armor until there's no armor. Then you're like, man, I really wish I would have had 2 E5Ss. You know?
Well, and you know what? That might be a call that people feel more comfortable making if they really do start to see more tanks and stuff on the field post AAT and Saber. And I mean, I really did kind of face more armor than I was expecting in Knowledge and Defense. Yeah. And, you know, still I felt like handled that in an appropriate way, even against a Rex Saber list that I thought would give me a lot of trouble. I just focused on eliminating as many of the core and trooper activations as possible, and then I took care of the tank. So, you know, we'll just have to see kind of what you think your list can handle and how the meta evolves.
Totally.
If I could just throw one more point just around the taking a list, like I can go back and think about lots of tables. There's one RPQ I played at, or Prime, I guess, where it's a cityscape table. Like basically with city blocks, you get down one laneway and you can see, you'd round a corner, then you can see another way. So it's basically gridded off. Well, if I were to have sabers on that table, I would have to make a decision at the start of the game, which lane is my saber going to shoot down, and this is where it's going to live for the whole game. That doesn't make it a real good feel-good moment for me, especially if that ends up being half of my list worth of points. Another, the rebel list running around on there, it's like, well, you pretty much won't be able to see me for the whole game. I only have to scoot around a corner. I win 13 activations. You can't kill enough. I'm fine. Like, I would chalk that up to a game I would lose based on the table, regardless of what the mission was. But then we're talking about a table that probably has 10 or 11 line of sight blockers. Well, that's clearly outside the parameters.
That's a little
now.
Extreme.
It totally is. But we've probably all played in an event that has that sort of cityscape type table.
I've been there. Oh yeah, for sure. I've been on those extremely dense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
okay.
happens.
So we'll talk about assets. So, we are getting a little bit of conversation about when are we getting the silhouettes here. So let's cover off the vital asset change.
Few minutes, people. I promise.
I'm taming them back here. I want to pick
LJ's brain about vital assets. So my question to you is, do you continue playing Double the Fall in the vital assets world?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've looked at the missions. I've played some of the missions recently. I've been playing Double the Fall as red player for every single game, basically, that I've ever played Double the Fall. And, the record, I think, speaks for itself. None of the scenarios are like, oh, if that card comes up, I think I lose this, no questions asked. That's with payload, you want to keep moving along the payload, and then their payload comes to you. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm thinking
hostage exchange. You've got troops near the middle of the board. Yeah. Great. I like that. That's great for me. It's not. None of it is necessarily bad. Not all of it is great, but there's none of them that I've looked at and been like, well, I think I'm boned. War Weary is maybe the closest. But even with War Weary, you've got two commanders, so I don't know.
That's okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the things. War Weary is something I actually wanted to talk about. But okay, so to piggyback on that, I'll say I've also felt pretty much the same way. I would say 95% of my games I was red. Okay, so I'm almost always using my opponent's battle deck. And I typically don't find that I'm winning games on ties or some sort of like back and forth stalemate. It's usually because the list in and of itself is so aggressive. Typically, I've found that like when I play Moisture Vaps, I win through the 3 cap with this list. And I think it's just kind of the nature of like I'm diving in your face with Dooku and Grievous, right? So I'm in the area where you're backcapping. And I think, like you said, looking at vital assets, I don't really foresee. Maybe Bombing Run might be a little bad for this list, but I don't necessarily foresee a ton of reasons why this couldn't still hang even without a bid.
Yeah, no, I think that when we get to vital assets, there's going to be 2 very distinct camps, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. You're either going to take a very large bid. I played against a 20-point bid list today. That was interesting. Or you're just going to play the 800 and roll the punches and be able to react to what you're getting thrown at you. Or, I'll caveat that by saying you'll play 798 or 799 to undercut those people that didn't care.
Right. And yeah, that's fair. Because I was in a group chat today and I was like, if you have a 793 point list, it's pointless.
Right.
You should probably just find ways to bump that up if you're not willing to cut down to like minus 20. Because there's going to be tons of people that are, especially Rebels. Like it's really easy to do with Rebels. But what do you put in? Assuming you just by the off chance you get blue player, what's in your battle deck now?
Looking at some of the newer options, I think I'm definitely taking payload, especially now that I've played it. Payload is really fun I can't underscore that enough. I've had a lot of fun playing Payload already, so I think that one's definitely going in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm keeping KP because I casually enjoyed the way it focuses my opponent. I think I'm getting rid of Sabotage, which might be a little controversial. But I think I might be getting rid of Sabotage in favor of Hostage Exchange.
Okay, so what I was going to say is my 4 would be Sabotage, Payload, KP, and Hostage Exchange.
Yeah, I think my last one would either be Breakthrough or I keep Sabotage in there, but I'm really not sure, just because I've had some weird breakthrough moments where my most forward unit that is going to break through tends to be, Grievous, but I really want Grievous mixing it up still, not capturing a point. And so Sabotage has been kind of a one that I've been messing around with. Usually with Sabotage, you place your objectives in very safe places, and I've actually been not doing that anymore and putting them kind of along my path of travel, because I'm going to move my entire army up in your face anyway. And it's easier to have them along your path of travel than to have them in a safe place. And that was actually something Lupo taught me watching him play Double the Fall that I've kind of adopted.
I've done the same thing, actually. I think so. One thing I noticed, I was watching you play. I don't remember which game it was in terms of like the schedule, but I know your opponent had like a single ATRT. They kind of had like was it like a single Tauntaun as well?
Yeah,
they had it was like a rebel list.
Kitchen.
Yeah,
a little bit of everything.
But what I noticed, what I like that you did, and I found that I've done the same thing, is you actually just went for the shots early and didn't clear your VAPs right away. And then when you started to get attritioned out a little bit, that's when you healed your VAPs. And you were doing like a nice, like, I'm taking wounds. I'm gonna shoot and move and duck behind this cover. Then I'm gonna hold off. Next turn, I'm gonna move out, tap my VAP. And I found that I've done the same thing, but I like it because droids are super powerful at full body count, right? I'd rather take the shots than waste the early turns before I've taken wounds, doing like healing the VAPs. And I also like to at least identify one VAP that my opponent's taking and aggressively put one on the same side, so I know I can just like dive on that third one with Grievous and Dooku and force them onto their back foot, which it makes it interesting, I think. And I don't know, I think I keep VAPs for now. I think it's a decent enough objective for this list. I don't like Recover the Supplies. I don't know about you.
I love Recover in Double the Fall, and I'll tell you why. You ain't taking a box away from Grievous if he's got it.
No, true.
One of my favorite plays with Grievous Dooku has been to save. I'll play. Actually, that's why I keep Grievous's 2-pip in the box. Is if I can get like advanced. Oh sure. If I can get advanced positions and recover the supplies, I'll play Grievous's 2-pip on turn 1, so he'll get a bunch of surge tokens. Double move him into base contact with the objective on the last activation of my turn, so he only takes a couple shots after that at most, and then play a Dooku card to get priority, and then double move him, or grab the box and move him off. And that's one that I play that a lot.
Yeah,
and I mean, anything that encourages your opponent to come into the center of the board, now you're talking Dooku territory, where I've had a lot of times where Dooku's been like, oh, you've moved up with Rex to grab the box, or like a squad of clones to grab the box. I think it's time for Dooku's 3-pip turn 1, and he'll jump, lightning you and pull you out. Yep, exactly. So
that's fair.
There's a lot of recover. I kind of forgot about Recover.
I also like God and Recover the Supplies.
Yeah.
So
that's one I've been playing.
Yeah, no,
I'll
that's
keep that
cool.
in there.
I think I'm cutting it just personally, but I don't think I think it's still winnable with the list, for sure.
And again, remember, whenever it comes to something with Double the Fall, if you've got a reason that makes you more comfortable playing with it, then it's probably not a bad reason. So, like, if you're not comfortable with it, then don't put it in your deck. I think it makes your list better.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk deployments. I mean, right off the bat, I really like Danger Close and Hemmed In.
Yep, Danger Close, Hemmed In, Advanced Positions, and Major Offensive. Don't even need to talk about it anymore. Done.
That's literally my exact.
all the ones that I'm not really a fan of. So I got it.
Oh,
yeah, Hemmed In is really bad.
Let me put my guys closer to you. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hemmed In is going to be crazy when you play Hemmed In and Payload. There's some dumb stuff you can do with those two combined together that I learned today. Yeah. It's crazy.
Like, just going back to an earlier question, how much do those B2s factor in as a more versatile unit in that I start closer to you type deployment?
Oh, absolutely.
Way better.
Yeah. They're gonna be great, and I'm excited for close range units like that, Wookiees, fleets, to maybe make a bit of resurgence, because again, these new objectives really do force a lot of movement.
Yeah, they force close range engagements, man. Fleets are certainly good.
I knew I bought 3 boxes. What were you going to say, Sean? I was just saying I knew I bought 3 boxes of Wookiees for a reason. So, nothing like running all the Wookiees. So, yeah, I'll look forward to it. So
Wookiee army all day. I like it. Conditions. Okay, so here's where we get some interesting stuff. I think. All right.
And a question came through there too.
What's the question?
It was reference deployment. So Danger Close, do you put Grievous on one end and Dooku at the other, or both on the closest spot?
I think it depends on the objective and what your goal is for that game. Mm-hmm. I've definitely done a lot of games where I've put them separate from each other to kind of make you decide, do I want to focus this or this? And then you make a mistake, and I try to capitalize on that. But, they might be getting just a little too far away from each other to where Grievous is not benefiting from Dooku's awesome Courage 3. And that's something that, a good opponent might take advantage of. So, you got to consider those things. It just depends on the table. There's a saying in the military called MET-TC dependent. And that's an acronym for a bunch of different things that I won't get into. But it basically means that every situation is going to be different and there's no right answer.
Yeah, fair enough. That I actually find anytime I get questions about turn 0, I'm like, I don't know where to start because there's so many variables there to consider that I don't think there's like a perfect set of rules. Like, I have to do this or I have to do that.
So Go ahead. I was just going to say that my philosophy for turn 0 is I look at it two things. You can have a responsive turn 0 or you can have a proactive turn 0. So when I'm looking at Mr. Bob Shadow's question there, what he's really asking you is when you deploy your units, what question are you asking? I like to ask the question in turn 0, and what I mean by that is I like to deploy my units that I'm asking my opponent, what are you going to do in response to this? I don't like to put my units down as a reactionary, this is my answer to what you've just done. I like to be more, it's not necessarily being aggressive because I may be deploying in a very defensive way, but I like to ask the questions with my deployments instead of answering a question that my opponents ask me. So if I were to put, if LJ put both of them together, in my opinion, he's asking me a question. Are you ready to focus down on this particular spot? If LJ were to deploy them in 2 different places, he's asking me the question, which one do I want to go after? And so that's how I look at turn 0.
Yeah, and you know what? Even with Double the Fall, I think it's quite hard to be purely reactionary because it's an 8 activation list.
Right, so you just don't need to be.
It's just like I'm deploying with this specific plan in mind, and it doesn't necessarily always matter how you're going to deploy because you're probably going to out-activate me anyway and get all your power pieces to drop after my whole army's down.
Right, so I've often joked that, like, hey, you do what you want, I'm going to deploy my army. It doesn't matter what you do, I'm just going to deploy my army because this is my plan, and I'm not going to let what you're doing mess with my plan, because that's when I make mistakes. So I like what you said there, Sean, because it does kind of echo a lot of the way that I like to deploy. If I try to be too clever and react to what you're doing, then I might make I might make a mistake because I do something that's not comfortable for me.
Yeah. If I'm talking about Saber Tank, the Saber Tank, I know what it does. You know what it does. You know what I want to do with it. I know what I want to do with it. So I'm going to deploy it early and ask the question: do you want to be directly across from this? Do you want to be in this kill box? And so I don't have to hold that unit. It's not like the sniper game where for a while there it was like, I want to deploy my snipers last because I want to counter sniper, or I want to put this in the most advantageous position, or I want to see where everything you have is. Well, I don't ask the question with the sniper by putting it down last, because I already know what that's going to do. That's not really a good ask a question unit. But the big things like the Dooku's, the Grievuses, the Sabers, the Lukes, those are the ones that you really put down in whatever fashion you do to ask that question. Or R2 is a good example of that too. Like you can tell, I think, the way people deploy R2, what they're going to do with R2 in the game. But I never reactionary deploy to R2. I just don't.
No.
So, yeah, this is my philosophy around turn zero.
I feel like if you do, you've fallen into your opponent's trap.
Right, which means you didn't have a good turn zero game plan to start with.
Right.
So, yeah.
For sure. I guess the last little subsection is conditions. Fortified positions, hey, droids love it. Yeah. I don't have a problem playing fortified positions if I get a bunch of extra cover for my super weak droids. War Weary is the big one that I think is interesting. So I wanted to pick your brain on War Weary, and I know everyone's going like, well, why would I take this, right? Like, this is going to punish me as hard as it's going to punish my opponent, and yada, yada, yada. Most people are like, I don't know about this. My thought on War Weary is I think there's a way that you could potentially adapt Double the Fall to not necessarily care about War Weary, because I've found often that in many games that I've played where I've been ultra aggressive with both Grievous and Dooku, they're kind of outside of the courage bubble for the droids, and strict orders kind of takes care of them not panicking. So I think that there is potentially a way to force War Weary to be more punishing to your opponent than to you. But again, I've also had situations where like Grievous and Dooku both died, and in turn 6 Krennic was alive, and I only had 6 activations of droids, and I got Annihilation Looms played on me, and it was key positions, and I was like gambling on every activation to see if I panicked off the objective or not. And like praying. And I think War Weary could kind of force you into that position more often as well. So I don't know. I feel like it's uncharted territory right now.
I've dropped 3 boxes with droids and ran 3 off the table and lost the game on turn 6 on Annihilation Looms. Same situation. Lost both my characters. Dooku died a turn too early. Dropped 3 boxes, ran off the table because I had positioned myself on the edge to be defensive. If Dooku lives, I'm good. Second, I mean, you just cave in like a Kmart coffee table, and off I ran. So,
and I'll never make that mistake again. If you're going against a Krennic opponent and you have the opportunity to kill Krennic, you just kind of have to.
Yep.
Because Annihilation Looms is kind of scary especially when Grievous and Dooku are dead, for sure.
Yep.
What are you, War Weary? You just saying straight up, I hate it, I don't want it, I'm gonna try to veto it every time?
I don't know if I'm gonna veto it every time, but if my opponent burns up a veto or 2 to get to War Weary, I generally am going to see that actually as a win for me, because I think the condition and deployment are going to be much more important for droids. Their ability to manage suppression a little bit better does kind of help them out. And if you do take a more elite focused army and you start throwing the B2s in there, well, then they care about it even less, because now it takes even more for them to panic. So I think with the newer armies, I think they're going to care about it a little bit less than others might. And it opens the door for your opponent to make a mistake that maybe you take advantage of.
Yeah, for sure. I think actually, you know what? I think War Weary might be really clever and interesting in a triple Sabs list.
Mm-hmm.
I'd really like to see Sabs come back. Maybe that is one way that they can become interesting again.
I think War Weary with Sabs would be disgusting because it's like, oh, you need to be range 1 away from this commander. Oh, that's a convenient looking mind circle you've left for me to chuck this into. I could see people doing that.
Yeah, you're either going to get Imperial Sabbed or you're going to get Imperial Sabbed.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the flow chart. It's either A or B.
Yeah, and assuming they don't just die really quickly, but yeah, that's pretty. That might be fun. I might have to try something out with that. All right, questions. Chris.
No, it's just Chris is pointing out that War Weary seemingly is good for clones.
Yeah, phase 2s, man. Phase 2s are gonna love War Weary.
They like to clump up, and they're all courage too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say sabers don't care about courage too, so just saying. just plug them a saber, So
Beavis double tank. Come on, man. Do it.
I thought we had this discussion. You can only refer to it as Aerosmith. Okay. We don't say double tank, so yeah.
All right.
Any further discussion on the conditions?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I don't really have any more thoughts on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have another topic here for discussion. I think we're going to have a brief conversation around the silhouettes.
Probably let me tell you why silhouettes was a good thing.
Yes.
Put him up in front of my screen. Can you see him? Does he come into focus okay there?
Yeah.
I need to use this model. If I don't use this model, as a hobbyist, as somebody who likes to convert models, I will die. So this rule allows me to use this guy.
What about
that's
this?
Pretty much all I have to say on it.
Yeah. What about this guy who people have paid like $250 to use as well? That just never goes on the table. Just saying.
Did stock just go way up for Celebration Vader and S and Obi-Wan? Did those just
go? They needed to go higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. Silhouettes are good, and people who are worried about it need to play with the silhouettes a little bit. There's a system that's well known that I think this gets its leanings from, that's used in Infinity, and almost every single person I've ever talked to about silhouettes first say Infinity and then follow that up with it's great. And it's going to make things better. It's weird how they implemented it, and I say that because Infinity has more granularity. They have about 7 different silhouettes. So like your R2-D2s would be different than your Wookiees, for example. Wookiees might be a size 3 versus R2 who might be a size 1. Right. But at the end of the day, as somebody who runs and judges and does stuff like that, this is going to be a good system. And I'm so excited for it to be in the game because there's so many terrain scope things, there's so many modeling things. I mean, it's going to make our jobs as TOs so much easier because we won't have to approve your conversions anymore, because if it's on a small base, you can use it. That's pretty much the end of the discussion there. So as a player, I'm excited. As a TO and a judge, I'm even more excited because this makes my job a lot easier. And honestly, you're not going to use them for about 80% of the game. 80% of the game, it's going to be like, oh, yeah, I can see that model. I'm going to shoot it. End of story. And it's only those situations where you were getting down low and you were looking at the bird's eye perspective anyway. That's when you would use the silhouette, which you already do. And now it takes a lot more of the granularity out of it. So I'm happy. I'm excited.
Yes.
People were complaining and saying they were not going to play Legion at the beginning of the game because it was a true line of sight game. Now there are people that were complaining because we've grabbed the silhouette. What I'm going to tell you and what my hot take here is going to be is at the end of this quarantine, y'all are going to be so desperate to play a game of Legion in person, you're not going to care if somebody wants to use a silhouette or not. You're just going to be happy to see another human being. And then, 6 months down the road, when we've been doing this for a competitive season, you're going to be like, oh my God, this was a great decision. So I'm waiting for that day.
So
the
just
silhouette to me is an incredibly positive change for the game.
okay, Joe, on that thought,
Yeah.
just before we get too far ahead, because believe it or not, there's still people today posting that they don't know what these are. So how about, can you give us like a 30-second rundown, Joe? What is a silhouette and how is it actually functioning in the game? Because we kind of just got right into how they're effective, but there are some people that still don't know what this tool is or does.
I mean, I'm saying if you look at the image that's on screen, it pretty much describes perfectly what it does. So essentially what it is they release this tournament document PDF. They're saying, hey, anyone just print this out, cut out this little piece of paper. This is your silhouette. There's plenty of third-party companies that are going to be releasing physical versions of this silhouette that you can have, us included. And it's basically just a standard rectangle that's the size is defined that you hold up behind the miniature. And you can only shoot at essentially what if you can see the silhouette or not. So if you look at that Luke, like you'll see his lightsaber is sticking maybe about an inch above the silhouette. If Luke were behind a wall and his lightsaber were sticking up above the wall and the only thing you can see is his lightsaber, you place the silhouette behind him. Can you see the silhouette now? No, you can't shoot at him.
Yeah.
Right? It's just taking away those, and I'm going to use the word toxic, and maybe that's the wrong word because I'm not faulting people for playing the game to any advantage that they can in a tournament setting, but I've seen situations, I've done it. Not even going to lie, I've done it as well, where it's like, okay, I could see the tip of Luke's lightsaber, even though he's hidden behind that wall. Your full intention was to hide him behind that wall. I could see the tip of his lightsaber. I'm going to shoot at him. That's come up time and time again in tournaments. Luke, the reason I think Luke is the example here for the silhouette is because he is like the most cited model for like why this was a problem before. And so many people were like excited about the operative Luke model because they're like, oh, I could use him as a commander or an operative and his lightsaber's down instead of up, right?
Right.
I've seen people be like, well, technically the Wookiee unit leader has a sword raised over his head, and the sword is centered over the center of the base. So I'm going to draw line of sight from this sword. So my Wookiees that are behind this wall can actually shoot over it, even though their face is looking directly at the wall. I've seen people shoot the tip of Boba Fett's gun, even though he was pretty much fully tucked behind a building. I've seen people say, I don't want to use my Celebration Vader because he's taller than my other Vader, and that puts me at a disadvantage. So this silhouette, like LJ said, solves all those problems. It lets you model the way you want. It lets you still, it standardizes all the trooper units, so that there's no gaming or advantage for like how your model physically looks. Yeah, and LJ can use his super awesome looking Grievous conversion. And I could use my Celebration Vader if I want to put Vader on the table, right? And it's all good stuff. I could put, when ARC Troopers come out, which I think we saw that they're delayed now until July or August, but
it was June, July, something like
June, yeah. Well, when ARC Troopers come out, I can put them on flight stands and not worry that they're super tall, right? It's all good stuff. Also, what you're seeing, too, is there's a little slit. You're going to be tracing line of sight from that little slit that's centered over the template, right? So you put your head down, you look at, you center your eye over that slit, and that's what the model can see, even if it's a little shorter or a little taller.
And that'll be good too, because you can put, small base troopers on, the side of a base, and then now it changes, fundamentally where their line of sight comes from.
Exactly.
That's another good, sneaky change too that I think people don't realize. I think people don't realize too is that there's a lot of things that people think happen at tournaments that don't happen very regularly, if at all, over the course of your tournament day, and this also takes care of them, and it'll be better over the long run for newer players, I think.
I've seen people express today in anger that they're like, now I got to use this template every time, and I'm like, really for 98% of the shots you're going to take, you don't. Right? But like for the second that you want to put Luke behind a building and like his lightsaber's sticking up a couple millimeters, you can now say, I can't shoot at him. That seemed dumb before, but it was legal. It's now like solved, right?
Just to clarify some points too, the wings that are shown on there, like the kind of the goldish yellow pieces, those are not part of your silhouette. So you won't be using those for targeting. And then also you'll notice that Luke's head doesn't actually go to the top of the silhouette. Mm-hmm. However, that will still be the point. The top of the silhouette is what you'll use. So it's just important to point out because, whether your head is like, let's say you have Luke modeled on a rock and your Luke's head is slightly above the silhouette. Maybe you have Luke in the standard stance here and his head slightly below. It's still going to be using the top of the silhouette. So whether you have a Grievous model like LJ's, mine's a bit wider, so mine would exceed the threshold of the side points. LJ's would go over the top, but it doesn't really matter. His, mine, or yours, this is the standardization, and I think that's the biggest reason why it's awesome. So, I see you have the ID-10 flight stand on there. Fantastic.
I love that conversion, man. It's awesome. I love that series.
A Tau drone was sacrificed to make this happen, and it was so worth it.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, here's the one thing that I am a little bummed about, but I'm not super nitpicky on this yet, although I have heard a valid reason on Discord that I think is a fair point. That you mentioned earlier, LJ, as well, is that, this is only for troopers. So we're not getting this for any other model or base size like vehicles or anything. And I know that people have, and again, this is getting super nitpicky, but people have been like, well, why would I put my steps on a taller flight stand and not the shortest possible one? Because aren't they at the same disadvantage? And there's no template for that. No, you're getting into like some semantics there, I think, and it's a little bit of maybe an exaggerated freak out, but it's a fair point.
You haven't seen the Saber Tank silhouette here? This is the Saber Tank silhouette. Just casually placed this behind you.
I thought that was the Sean silhouette there.
Yeah, fair.
Like, what point is he making here?
Yeah, no, this is the Saber Tank silhouette. It's unreleased, just to look, check out our web store.
I wouldn't be surprised if over time we started to get more of that granularity, or they just kind of release more information for like, oh, this is, proper within bounds building for this unit or something like that, because I think that's why they didn't really build different levels of silhouettes, because if you start to get into the vehicles and stuff, Infinity doesn't have ATST size vehicles, so there's,
True.
We don't want an ATST silhouette walking around the
I don't need an ATST silhouette. I wouldn't mind an E-Web silhouette.
Yeah, they're the smaller base. The smaller you get, like the more, let's say, the medium-sized stuff, Tauntauns, ATRTs, E-Webs, stuff like that. I think there's maybe some change that'll happen there in the long run once we've played around with the system for 6 months or a year or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if it changed when we're talking, year 4, year 5 Legion. But here at the start of year 3, this is perfect, and this is
an amazing change.
Just
fantastic.
Just speculating, if you go down that rabbit hole for a second, I think one of the ways that you could potentially put some quick and easy measurement tools into the game is if they were to release a set of range sticks with actually defined measures right on there. It's like, here's the width of a medium base and the height, and just actually have them already etched right on the range sticks. I have a range stick, I put it behind, here's the marker, it's already defined, it tells me right on there, medium height, I can turn it sideways, there's my width, and I could just have a quick and easy measure. It's probably not as precise as something like this, but if it comes down to quick and dirty, I want to not slow this game down and I want to play, I think the range sticks might be a nice place where you could actually put those markings.
Yeah. I saw you put the question up that Bees asked, hi Bees, about 42 or 43. Here's my solution, and I know this is controversial to say in COVID times. Just share one silhouette, just like we do with dice. I'm probably going to have one nice silhouette that I bring, and I'm going to say, hey, we're already sharing the dice pool, which, yes, I'm still going to do after this. Sorry. Let's just use this silhouette, and I'll keep it near the dice. So if we need to bring it, we just grab it, put it down, put it back, grab it, put it down, put it back.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's 42 or 43 millimeters because you're using the same template. So who cares?
Right.
Did they make that mistake? Say 42 in one aspect, but print 43? I haven't printed myself, so I can't tell you myself. But as long as you're using the same template, who cares what the 1 millimeter difference is? If you're worried about that 1 millimeter, you might be part of the problem group here.
Yes.
Let me just spoil you. Let me just spoil this for you. Everyone's going to print it off, and everyone's going to cut it out. So if you don't cut it out precisely the same way as somebody else cut it out, you're already going to have variation right there. So if you can't cut on the lines perfectly, if you don't use a tool, it doesn't really matter what you printed it out as. It's what you cut it as. Because I guess probably many people aren't measuring it after they cut. Maybe the top of your silhouette's 42 and the bottom's 43. We never talked about that. The bottom line is the hashtag at the bottom says it all. Just ask Carol Baskins, you'll be fine.
We're nitpicking over a millimeter. That's like, come on.
Hey,
yeah, that's the kind of thing matters. That it's a problem that is going to happen exactly 0 times in the next 3 months because we're all still going to be quarantined anyway. So it's not like you're playing a lot of in-person Legion where this matters.
Right.
They'll fix it. Just give them a minute, okay?
Give it a second. Just give it.
Luke has gone on several occasions. He's taken our feedback from an RRG where we've been like, hey, this bullet point is missing. Should it be there? And then fixed it the next week. So, like, if there's a genuine problem, just give us some time. They'll fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Typos have gotten cleared up pretty quickly and stuff. Like, it's all good.
Joe, I'm sensing an opportunity.
You can't go to a tournament right now anyway. Right? Like,
yeah. So, Legion Academy branded calipers. I'm just sensing an opportunity right there, Joe. Let me just quickly measure up your silhouette there, sir. Thank you. All right. So do you want to show some silhouettes that we have in the works, Joe, or what?
Sure. Yeah, we can end off the show with that real quick.
Okay. Is there anything else about silhouettes that we want to discuss? I mean, I was a little disappointed by the lack of effort by the community to produce silhouettes like literally minutes after this document dropped. Like people were just like, people had like the fastest 3D printers in the world. It's like there's like 43 mock-ups of this. So yeah,
that was really cool to see the community react like that so quickly. Yeah. And I know that I'm not gonna lie, I'm already in talks with a community artist to help me develop some patterns for LVO 2021 silhouettes that everybody get when you go to the tournament. So
I think that's actually going to be a thing we'll see a lot.
Yeah, that'll be pretty big.
42 or 43 millimeter?
I'm going to do 42 and a half just to annoy those people.
Just to tilt that like 0.1%.
No, I'm telling you, do it like a slight skew where it's like 42 and 43.
Oh, on one side?
It's like
there you go. It'll be a slant.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. Fantastic. Well, have a look at these. I'll let Joe talk about this stuff here.
Yeah, so we put up a poll on the Patreon. We're obviously going to jump on the bandwagon and do our own silhouettes because it seems like pretty much everyone's doing them. Why not do them as well, right? So the thing I like about the design that we have going here is that they are removable from the little base, the little stand. So I like the stand because I like the idea of slotting them up against the Mini and taking my hands off. But I have heard people say, hey, I just want to be able to hold it flush against the Mini's base. Well, this stand is detachable, and it's they're the correct height because it kind of like slots in. So you can do both. We're gonna,
great.
Yeah, so it'll be nice. And we'll make them like very like cheap, like they won't be expensive. Like I'd like a bunch of people to end up being able to put these on the table. We're just going to do all 4 faction logos because that's just like pretty standard, straightforward. It doesn't matter what army you have, we'll just have all 4. And then we're probably going to do both black and white acrylic, your choice. And then we're going to do, if you see like the logos are different colors, we're probably going to do like 5 to 7 different color options as well. So if you want a white acrylic with a green Empire logo because you painted your stormtroopers green and white, you can do it, right? So we'll have all those available. Like, you could go on the website. We'll have a drop down with the different color choices, and yeah, we'll put those in production like pretty soon here. We got the prototypes. We got the people voting on the style. I personally like it with the slit cut out as opposed to etched in, because I kind of like that I can like get my eye down there and peek through it and really get a true line of sight. So I think that's the style we're going to end up going with. It seems like the Patreon poll has kind of leaned toward people want the cutout slit. But yeah, so stay tuned. We'll post those on our Facebook page within probably the next 24 hours and make those available.
Yeah, those look good. I like the cutout slit myself, so that's my vote as well. Not, that it matters. That's my vote.
Yeah.
Those are cool. I'm glad those are coming out already, because those are going to be such a cool side market for, custom Legion content, just like the tokens have become.
I think one of the cool things too about having the stand just as an available option. Obviously, it's going to matter with coherency, and if you don't want to displace models to kind of put this down. But if you're really in a sticky position and your opponent agrees, then you probably can maneuver that to get in there if it's not a model in question. However, what I do like about this is it eliminates the shaky hand business. So I don't have to hold a template in place if I have a shaky hands, or if it's in kind of a precarious position where maybe I'm knocking 2 or 3 other models in the process to figure out if I have line of sight to one. So if I'm able to just set this down, step back, or let my opponent kind of decide, or even go around and to my opponent's side of the table, and we can kind of eye up the exact same thing. I think there's something to be said for the standalone feature of this. So
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I've seen other people doing it. I think it's a great idea. So yeah, that should be good. LJ, thank you so much again for your time. We appreciate you coming on, chatting with us, hanging out. Always fun to have you on, man, and always great to see you just dominating with a list that's near and dear to my heart as well.
Yeah,
so,
it was a great event. I really enjoyed playing Double the Fall at Knowledge and Defense. My game came down to a potential huge Grievous roll. And those are the types of matches that you want to watch because they're interesting until the last second. So honestly, I have zero complaints. I wanted to go to Worlds and make it to day 2 with droids. And I mean, I didn't get to do that in real life, but I got to do that here. And honestly, like the fact that I was still playing on Sunday kind of amazed me. But it felt really gratifying because I know I've been working on that list really, really hard over the past 5 months or so. So I'm happy to see it come to fruition because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, and it's a big win for all the new faction haters. Like, I like it. Honestly, like, hey, Double the Fall hangs, guys.
Droids prepped pretty well over Knowledge and Defense.
Yeah.
Just for the record, too, LJ, can you just say aloud how many activations are in that list?
There's 8 activations in that list.
Yeah, 8. Got it. Thank you. Just wanted to get a hard confirm on that number. I'm also playing an 8 activation list.
3 days of games.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was 3 days worth of games, and Droid Double the Fall was the only list that was undefeated going into day 3. I didn't win the entire thing, but I definitely tried to hold them in there. And honestly, the 8 activations with droids, especially an 8 activation droid list, is the equivalent of a 10 activation Imperial or Rebel list, in my opinion.
Totally.
The kind of control you get from that, and the calculus is different for clones, in my opinion, but especially with droids, it's so easy to make that work, and I really, really have enjoyed that kind of control over the army, and I'm glad droids can be so rewarding because I wanted to play Legion because I thought droids might be a thing one day, and here I am, repping them at big events and stuff, and it's
doing really well, yeah. Man, and it's also a labor of love to know that it was tedious to build all those droids, but it's rewarding to put them on the table, right?
Yep. And I am a member of Club 78. I've got 6 squads of droids and their accompanying specialists built. So labor of love indeed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good stuff, man. Congrats. That was good. That was a good showing. All right, I think that's kind of all I've got for today.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly throw up the stuff that we always have to do on each episode because, it's a thing. So I'm going to just throw up here, and we'll probably have some music playing in the background, some of these, which is fine. But so where to find us on the social media side of things: Facebook, Legion Academy Podcast there. Patreon, you can find us at Patreon/Legion Academy. And YouTube, same thing. You can now search Legion Academy and find us. I got rid of our weird YouTube-generated address. You can just find us with the Legion Academy. We also want to thank all of our pledge supporters. That would be Michael, Nathan, Mike, Alpaz, Jeff, Nick, Robert, Chris, and Tyler, getting us on our way to our M50. Lots of questions too, just around this. Actually, I'm just going to stop this music so you guys can hear me a little bit better. But people were wondering about our commitment to go 800 point games following Worlds. So we're going to consider that Worlds is come and gone, even though there wasn't an actual Worlds. So you will see our 800 point games coming out. Of course, we have to get rid of this COVID-19. But as soon as that is done, we will hard shift on our Friday night fights over to 800. So that is coming. So thanks for the questions, but I wanted to give you guys an update. I'll bring us back here and send us off. So I guess, Joe already said thank you, but I'll say thank you as well, LJ, for joining us. Appreciate that. Always good to have somebody come on and talk about Double the Fall with Joe. Knows what's going on there. So I've just dabbled in it, but of course I've hard shifted over, which I can't wait to play you, LJ, because what I heard is you're going to ignore over half of my list worth of points. So he said you heard it here. He said he just ignores armor. Fantastic. So that just means hide the other half of my list, and LJ will just have to ignore me. He'll have no choice. I'm gonna hold him to it. So fair enough. No. Do appreciate that. So we'll catch you guys on, if not in the studio, on next Tuesday for another Legion Academy. So thanks, guys. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good week. Stay safe, everyone.
Cheers.